Hi everyone, welcome to a tutorial video for BlockDAG Explorer. So guys, I'm going to give you the complete guidance for how to run our Explorer. So how to use it. So first of all, we are going to give you the walkthrough for the EVM part. So as you can see, this is my dashboard. So where you can see on the dashboard summary, what is the current block deck price, how many total blocks have been generated on our chain, what is the latest safe block number, and the total transaction that has been made so far on the testnet. And towards the right, you can see the transaction history, where you can see on Monday how many transactions have taken place, on Tuesday how many transactions have taken place, along with the total fee involved with it. Now coming to the bottom, we have our summary section where you can see the top five blocks that have been generated, the latest ones. Similarly, we have the latest top five latest transactions as well. And now moving to the block section. Now on the blocks, you will be able to see all the details and records of the block added to the chain. It also allows you to track transaction in each block, right? As you can see. So at the top, you can see the latest safe block. Now this displays the most recent block, yeah, created on the chain and validated by. Now next we have the block list where you can see the block number which represents the height of the block on the chain. And then we have the hash which act as a unique identifier for the block. And then we have the age determining or acting as a timestamp when the block was added to the network. Then we have the transaction count where you can see how many transactions have taken place within this specific block while it was getting confirmed. Then we have the gas use, indicating the total amount of computation effort spent by executing the transaction within the block. Then we have the gas limit, determining the maximum amount of gas that can be used in the block, right? And then last but not the least, we have the base fee, where you can see the minimum fee gas per unit that must be paid for a transaction within a specific block. So now I'll click on the specific block to get to the details part. Where in the block's detail, you can see the block number, right? Then we have the current depth, which indicates the most recent block in the blockchain. Then we have the base fee, right? Which is meant for any transaction set by the network. Then we have the block hash, that is the unique identifier. Then we have age, determines when was the block being generated. Then we have the size, the block size, right, which represents the amount of total data stored in that specific block, including transactions or any other required information. Then we have the gas use, you can see, right, which basically measures the computational work needed to process the transaction or any smart contract within this block. Then we have the gas limit, right, that depicts the maximum amount of gas that can be used by all the transactions within this specific block. Then we have a parent hash, which links to the predecessor block for maintaining the chain's continuity. Last, we have the recipient's root, right? This act as a Merkle root hash for summarizing all the transactions recipient within the specific block. Last but not the least, we have the transaction list of the specific in this specific block, this transaction has taken place. So as you can see, the transaction hash, the block number, what event was that, along with the age, from true address, and the amount that was being transferred, and the transaction fees that has taken place. So this is we have from the block side. Now moving to the transaction section, right? So on the transaction list, right, you can see on the transaction summary section, the total transactions displays the total number of transactions being taking place within the time period. Then we have the total contract transaction, right, which includes the deployed smart contract, executed functions, and all. Basically, specifying the track of numbers of transactions involved within a smart contract interaction. Then we have the average transaction fee, right, which represents the medium gas uh, paid by the user or to process the transaction on the network, right? Then in the table section, we have the transaction hash, which act as a unique identifier for this specific transactions. Then we have the block number where the transaction was confirmed, indicating its placement within a chain. Then we have the events part, which shows the type of action was taken in the transaction, right? As you can see here, the transfer that a standard token was being transferred. Then we have age, which acts as the timestamp, right? Since when was the transaction being processed? Then we have the true address, which depicts as the sender's wallet address. Then we have the from address, right, which acts as the sender wallet address. Then we have a to address, you can see, which act as a recipient's address or contract address, right, which received the amount. Then we have the amount section, where you can see that what was the amount being transferred. Then we have the transaction fee that depicts the amount of gas fee paid for processing that transaction. Now I click on this specific transaction to get the detail of it. So now in the details section at the top, you can see the transaction hash, right? You can copy it as well. Then we have in the transaction details the overview part, where you can see the block number, what is the status of this transaction. So as you can see, it's a successful transaction. Then we have the time stamp, which depicts me when the transaction has taken place. Then we have the from and the to address. From stands for the sender, to stands for the receiver. Then we have the value that was being transferred. Then we have the transaction fee. Along with that, we have the gas price that was being used and the gas used. Now we are moving to the contract list part, where you can see the complete. Now we'll click on the contract list, where you can see that till now total 50 contracts have been deployed on a chain, right? You can see the contract name, contract address, what type of contract it is, who is the owner of this contract, when was this contract being deployed, along with the status of it. So now we'll click on this verified contract. So now, as you can see, uh, the owner's address, what is the contract name, what type of token contract it is, and then we have the contract address as well. How many holders are of this contract? What are the total transfer that have taken place? What is the price of this token, along with the total supply and the token ticker? Then at the bottom sections, we have multiple tabs. Then we have transfers, holders, events, info, and the contract part. In the contract part, you can perform various functions like read and write contract. In order to do so, you need to connect your MetaMask wallet, and then you would be able to perform these certain actions. Now, in the read contract, right, we can get the balance. For this, you need to copy your wallet address, paste it, and read the contract, right? Similarly, we have the verification screen, where you can verify your contract by entering the required fields. In this, you need to enter your contract address, what type of compile type is. You can select it, whether it's a single or a multiple file. Then you need to select your compiler version. Similarly, we have the open source license as well. Once you click on the agree part, then you would be able to move on the next step, where you need to enter the code and click on submit. Now moving to the tokens part, you can see the token list, where you can see the token name, right? The change and the price, indicating the current value of the token. Then we have the volume, which represents the total amount of tokens traded within 24 hours. Then we have the circulating market cap, which indicates that the total value of all the tokens currently available in the market. And then we have the on-chain market cap, which is another important actress that represents the total value of the token based on its fully supply on the blockchain. Then we have our holders, where you can see how many wallet addresses currently own that specific token. So now I click on this detail page. Now on the token detail, in the overview section, you can see the owner address to which this specific contract belongs to. Then we have the contract name, under which name it was registered. Then we have the token name depicting the public display name of the token. Then we have the type, what type of token contract was being deployed. As you can see, it's an ERC20 contract. Then we have the contract address, right, where the token logic is being stored along with the other functions. Then we have on the market side, you can see the holders, which means that only how many holders or wallet addresses currently own this token. Then we have the total transfer, which means that the tokens that have been moved between different addresses. So as you can see, single transfer has taken place. Then we have the price showing in the current value. Then along with that, we have the total supply, which shows the current supply of the tokens along with the token ticker. Now below we have multiple tabs where you can see first is transfer, which displays the all transactions involving this token, including senders and receivers contract interactions. Then we have the holders tab, which displays the wallet addresses that own this token. Then we have the event, which displays the contract events such as minting and other types. Then we have the info tab, which provides key information about the token. Then we have the contract tab, which provides the smart contract source code. So now let's get started by moving one to one tab and getting more details of it. So in the transfer tab, right, you can see the transaction hash, right, that depicts the transaction on the chain in which it got verified. Then we have the events part, which shows the sender has moved the tokens from their wallet address to another address. Then we have the block number, which depicts the blockchain the transaction was recorded. Then we have the age, which tells us when the transaction was added to the chain. The firm address depicts the sender, and the to address depicts the receiver's wallet address. Then we have the quantity, the amount of tokens being transferred in this transaction. Now we'll move to the holders part, where you can see in the holder section the address, basically the wallet address of the token holder, what is the current price, market price of the token. Then we have the quantity of tokens held by this wallet along with the value, worth of tokens held by the wallet, and the percentage, the wallet shares of the total supply. Now, if I click on the detail part, I would be able to see the holder's detail, where you can see the holder wallet address, balance, right? The BlockDAG value along with the last transaction that was taken place and the first transaction initiated by this wallet. Now coming to the table part, where you can see the transaction hash, right? The block numbers, these are all the transactions that have taken place via this wallet address. Now let's move back. As we are on the transfer page, you can see the overview of these transactions along with the logs of this, where you can see the raw data, what are the methods and the topics involved into it. Now let's move to our next tab, which is the events. So in the event tab, you would be able to record the on-chain activities related to the tokens, right? So in the to- in the total event logs in the transaction tab, you can see the transaction hash, right? Then we have the block number, which tells when the transaction was confirmed, along with the age and the method, the specs that event was triggered, right? And inside the smart contract, and we can see who has sent from one wallet address to another. Now then we have the token transfer screen. Now in the token transfer, just a minute, sorry. Let's go back to the token. We have missed the info part. Now clicking on the info tab, you would be able to see the volume, which represents basically the total value of this token traded in the last 24 hours across various platforms. Then we have the market cap, which calculates the token price and the circulating price, representing the total value of all the tokens. Then we have the circulating supply, represents the total number of tokens currently available in the market. Then we have the on-chain capitalization, which represents the total value of all tokens recorded on the chain. Last but not the least, we have the contract tab, where you will be able to perform certain functions. This is the core part where you can see the status of the contract, which is fully verified. Then we have the contract name, the EVM version, optimizations runs, the compiler, and everything, the information related to the contract part. Now at the bottom, you can see the contract source code. This is the contract ABI, the contract code creation, the deployed bytecode. Now in the read section, as you can see, the wallet is already connected. We can see the domain separator. We can read the specific functions. Similarly, we can perform the write functions as well. Now let's move to the token transfer page. Now for the token transfer, you can see the complete list of tokens, right? Where you can see the total transactions that have taken so far. Now in the table, you can see the transaction hash, right? Which act as a unique identifier for the specific transactions. Then we have the transaction method. As you can see, the transfer method means that tokens were sent from one wallet address to another. Then we have the block number, with which each transaction block belongs to a specific block in that chain. Then we have the age, which acts as the timestamp on which transaction was added to the chain. Then we have the sender and the receiver address, which their wallet addresses, from which address to whom the transfer was taken place. Then we have the amount that was being transferred within these wallets. Now, if I click on the detail part of it, I can see the transactions detail, the block number. You can see the status is success. Then we have the timestamp, the to and the from addresses. We have the add-on information. Now let's move to our next page, which is the node visualizer. Now in the node visualizer, you can see the best block that was being uh, created within our chain. Then we have the finalized block that has been confirmed and finalized. Then we have the average time, which represents the average time taken to generate a block. Then we have the last transaction, where you can see the latest transaction in the node visualizer, basically representing the recently validated block, showing its hash, parent hash, and transactions as well. Now, then we have the TPS, transaction per second, that shows the number of transactions processed per second on the network. Then we have the TPB, which indicates the average number of transactions per block. So you can see the graphical view of this. Similarly, we have a node list view, where you can see the node ID, node name, country, the city in which it is being hosted, and the node IP. Now, the last part in our EVM section is the faucet part, where you can see the latest faucet, the funds that have users have taken place, right? So, similarly, we just need to copy a wallet address, paste it over here, and enter the amount you want to receive. And this will give you the testnet funds. As you can see, the transaction is a success, and this would be reflecting soon on our Explorer as well. Now you can see 8 seconds ago, I have entered this specific wallet address and have received this amount. So make sure that your BDAG network is added to your chain. Now guys, let's move to the UTXO part. Now in the UTXO, you can see this is our home section, where you can see the graphical representations. Basically, this displays all the UTXO transactions happened in the past 7 days, past 30 days, 90 days, similarly to an year. Now at the bottom, you can see the summary section, which displays the latest UTXO blocks being generated on our chain. Then we similarly have the UTXO transactions as well that have taken place. Now let's move to the block part. In the block list, you can see the latest safe block that has been generated by the chain. Then we have the latest block that represents the most recently mined block. Then we have the average block time, which indicates how frequently new blocks are created. Now at the bottom, you can see the block table, which shows the first, we can see the column is a block number, which basically gives a unique number showing its position in the block. Then we have the hash. For each block, there's a different hash. Then we have the age column, which shows how long a block was mined. Then we have the transaction count. Each block contains a certain number of transactions. Then we have the nonce. The nonce is a number miners generated to solve the cryptographical puzzle. Then we have the total sent, basically depicts the total amount of BDAG sent in each block. Then we have the block size in bytes. Then we have the total fee, which depicts the total fee, right, indicating that how many transactions have taken fee, transaction fee has been paid. Now let's click on the block detail page to get it. Now in the block detail page, you can see the current depth, which indicates the number of blocks added to the chain after the specific one. And at the top, you can see the block number. You can copy it as well. Then we have the block hash, which acts as a unique fingerprint for the block created using this data. Then we have the parent hash, right? This links to the all other previous blocks, right? Then we have the A section where you can see when was the transaction being confirmed, then the block being generated. Then we have the total difficulty, which shows the total computing power used to mine all the blocks up to this specific one. Then we have the block size in bytes, shows how much data indicating transactions information containing within this block. Then we have the block weight, which measures how much data and computational powers were being used. Then we have the virtual block size, which tells us how many space the block actually occupies after optimization. Then we have the version section where you can see the number of blocks, version number of blocks. Then we have nonce, one-time user number in cryptography, which helps users to generate the block hash. Then we have the Merkle root, the root hash, right, of the transaction in this specific block ensures that the transaction have not been tampered. Then we have the bits. The current difficulty target indicates how challenging it was to mine, right? Then we have the total fee, the transaction fee collected for the transaction processed within specific block. Last, we have the total sent part, where you can see how many tokens were being moved within this block. Now at the bottom, you can see the transaction block transaction detail, right? One input, and we have two outputs for this, and this is the amount of value being transacted. Now let's move to the transaction list part. Now in the transaction list at the top, you can see the total transactions, means that represents that how many transactions have taken place so far. Then and the table part, you can see the transaction hash. This is act as a unique identifier. Then the A section tells me when this specific transaction has taken place, what was the fee being involved, and how many tokens have been sent. Now in the details, in the detail section, you can see the transaction hash, which can be copied. Then we have the amount which was being transacted, the fee involved, and when was this amount being received, along with the. Then we have the confirmation part, which shows how many confirmations the transaction hash. Then we have the block number, which helps to track when the transaction was confirmed and how it is secure, how secure it is. Then we have the size of the transaction data, which is given in bytes. uh, Below to that, we have the log time, indicating when the transaction can be integrated in a block, right? Then we have the version of the transaction. Along with that, we have the input, ensure that valid and existing blocks can be spent. Then we have the output, define how many funds are distributed, ensuring the correct amount which reaches to the right recipient. At the bottom, you can see we have one input and two outputs. Now let's move to the node visualizer screen, where, as you can see, this is our UTXO nodes which are being hosted. We have our best block, the finalized, along with the average time. Now this is a globe view. Similarly, we can have a node view as well. You can see where you can see the node ID. This is the node name, in which country it's being hosted, and in which city, along with the node IP. Similarly, we'll do one faucet transaction as well, like we did it in our EVM part. So for this, you need to enter your UTXO wallet address. Along with this, you need to enter the amount you want to receive and click on Send Me BDAG. And your transaction is a success. This will get updated in a couple of seconds on our chain Explorer, and you can see it. So guys, this is all we have from our Explorer demo. Thank you so much for watching.